Push 3 has a bit of a different workflow than other samplers when it comes to sampling from external sources. You first have to record your samples into an audio track and then use the convert command to send them to a sampler or a drum rack. But it's still not hard to do at all. And in this full and detailed tutorial, we're gonna explore all types of sampling, including the classic slicing technique with sampler, a copy and change the starting point technique in the drum rack, which is great for making drum kits from sampled drum breaks. And also make sure you stick around until the end of the video where I show you how to record single notes and turn them into playable instruments really quickly. So whether you're using the standalone mode or you're controlling Ableton Live on your computer, you will learn everything you need to know, including how to set up audio tracks for audio recording. As always, the video is not sponsored, but a great way to support the channel is to get one of my Ableton Live packs or sample packs from the link down in the video description. And now let's dive right into the tutorial. Alright, so in order to sample on the Push 3, you gotta first record your samples into an audio track. I've got my iPad connected to the inputs on the Push 3, and this is where my samples are gonna come from. Let's set up the audio recording settings first. First of all, we go to our mixer page, hit the mixer button twice, and then you got the input, output, and mix settings for the selected audio track. So on the input and output page, you can select an input channel. I'm gonna go with 1 and 2. We're gonna do a stereo recording from inputs 1 and 2. Now the monitoring, this refers to whether you're gonna be hearing the input through that track. So if it's set to in, you're gonna be hearing the input regardless of whether the track is record enabled. When it's set to auto, you're gonna hear the input only if the track is record enabled. But if there is a clip playing on that track, you will hear that clip, or you turn it off and then you won't hear the input in any case. This is useful if you're listening to your input through some other device like a mixer or an audio interface or something like that. And to adjust my input levels, I go to the settings, I go to audio, and then I got the gain setting for my inputs. I've linked inputs 1 and 2. You can link them or unlink them with this button here. So with this knob, I can essentially turn up the gain if my source isn't loud enough. Obviously, you don't want to clip your inputs, so you better not turn it all the way up. Once we have this set up, I think we are ready to record. Let's just find the place in the track that we're going to be sampling. Oh, and also it would be a good idea to turn off the counting. We hold the metronome button. Turn off the counting. This is so recording starts immediately after we hit the record button, so we don't have to wait. Actually, most samplers have the feature where they listen to your input and detect whether the input is loud enough, and they start recording automatically. Push 3 doesn't do that. Okay, so then obviously just make sure your track is record enabled if it isn't. You can do that by holding the button corresponding to that audio track, and let's record something. Well, as always, I'm not going to play the whole sample to avoid the copyright claim. However, I will put a link to the track in the video description. It's a song from the Tokyo Love Story TV series soundtrack, and the track is called Tenderly Rika's Theme. Super dope. Alright, so we got our sample recorded. We can easily sync it up to the grid with Ableton's auto warping. Hit the edit button, press warp to grid, and now it's synced up to the grid. The metronome is on, so we can check if it's in sync. Yep, we got it. Hit the done button. Just gonna crop this small portion in the end just to make sure it ends at bar 9, and I can hold the shift button, by the way, to move the end point at finer increments. Same goes for the starting point. So now we got the perfect loop. We can enable the loop, make the loop longer, like 8 bars, and it's perfectly synced. And I can even change the start offset actually, just to include this part in the beginning. So we can leave it like this and just add the drums, or we can chop it up. Alright, so now we can hit the convert button, convert it to a sampler, and now let's explore the chopping options inside sampler. So to enter the settings of sampler, we hit the sampler button up here. So we got all these tabs. These are the various sections of this device. We got the classic mode. We can play the sample up and down the keyboard. We got the one-shot mode that does the same thing, but we don't have envelopes, so the sample will always play from beginning to end, not the thing we're looking for in this case. Checking out the slicing mode, and this is the one that we're looking for. So we got the slice by transients. So this basically slices our sample depending on where there are events in the sample, like drum hits or new chords and stuff. It analyzes the amplitude and sets up the slices automatically. And we can make it more or less sensitive with using this sensitivity control. Now the beat mode, this is quite easy when we got a perfectly cropped loop like this one. This slices the sample into equal beats, so you can divide it into quarter notes, quarter triplets, 1 bar, 2 bars, 8th note, 16th notes, whatever. We got the region, and you can slice it into any number of regions that you want. And you also got the manual mode, where you tap each pad in succession and you create a slice marker at the exact same place where you've tapped the pad. And let's use this one to chop up this sample. And also, after chopping the sample, you can use the nudge control to fine-tune the starting point of each slice. And it's done, it's sliced. But now, since the sample is warped, we can see that in the warping page. Oh no, warping is not turned on. Okay, let's turn it on and choose the warping mode complex. This will make sure that even though we're not in the audio clip anymore, we are in the simpler, our slices and our sample is still gonna play in sync with the tempo of our track. I would say though that this is optional. You can get some quite interesting results without syncing the sample to your project. Some interesting grooves can be achieved using this approach. All right, let's record more samples. Let's say we want to sample a drum break. I've got this hip hop drum beat from YouTube, but you can sample any break you want, obviously. So let's go back to our audio track, record, enable it. And on the second clip in our audio track, we're going to record this drum break. And so let's just hit record and play our sample. So now this one, we can convert it to a drum pad, hit the convert button, choose a drum pad, and now we are in the drum rack. So to see the actual drum rack, we're gonna go to our note view. Remember, we got the session view, and then we got the note view. So what we're gonna do with this one, we're just gonna isolate a couple of hits from this break. Let's set the starting point to this kick here. Zoom in a bit. Set the end point after the kick ends. There we go, we have a kick drum. So we can just duplicate it by holding the duplicate button, hitting the pad with the kick, and then hitting the pads next to it. So this will copy the exact same sample onto pad 2. Now what we're going to do with pad 2, change the start and end points to the snare drum. Okay, duplicate it once again. And now we're going to change the starting point of this one to the hi-hats. All right, let's record this drum pattern. Just gonna go to the session view, make sure none of my clips are playing where I recorded the samples. Actually, I can even delete them from the first audio track where I recorded my samples. All right, so now that I'm in the drum rack, turn on the metronome. Actually, we can now enable the counting, hold the metronome, enable the counting. Let's go with the tempo of 88. All right, quantize these drums slightly and add some swing. Quantize amount 40, quantize to 16th note with a 30% swing. Let go of the quantize button and to execute the quantize command, hit it once again. So before I play my sample, I just want to load a percussion loop. Hit the clip button. In order to load the sample onto the audio track, we need to do that. We need to be in the clip menu. Hit the hot swap button, and then I'm going to navigate to my user library. All right, let's record enable the simpler where I chop the sample and play our sample chops. Let me add some effects to my sample, hit the plus button, device, audio effects. Let's add some channel EQ to turn down the lows, high pass, filter it. Plus we're gonna also add a bit of compression. Gonna choose the peak mode of the compressor, turn down the threshold. Actually, I'm gonna go back to my drum rack with the drums. Wanna add a drum bus to that. So now I'm gonna record a single note from a synth just to add a bass line. Okay, so I got a Korg Gadget synth here. I'm just gonna record a C note. Again, the procedure is the same. Alright, so I got this audio clip recorded with this bass note. Hit convert to a simpler. Okay, so I've got this bass note loaded into simpler. Set the starting point. If you're not sure what note you sampled, or if your sample source is not quite in tune, hit the plus button, add device, and go to the tuner device. So when we hit a C, we hear a C, so the note we've sampled is a C. That's what we're looking for. So just wanted to clarify something really quickly. If the note that you're sampling is not tuned to C, the note that you are actually hearing when you play the pads is not going to be the note that you're actually playing. So for example, if you set your scale to E minor like we do in this video, you're not going to be playing in E minor because your note, the note that you're sampling, isn't tuned properly. Again, we press the simpler button once again, and now that we're in the simpler, go to global, make it monophonic for a bass sound. And since the sample is in E minor, I checked this beforehand, I go to my scale, set the scale to E minor. Alright, so I didn't record this, but I got the capture feature. I don't quite like these notes though. Let's remove these. It's actually super fun. Let's sample another sound. Okay, so I'm gonna use the same audio track. The procedure is the same as with the bass sound. Convert it to a simpler. Set the starting point. And to make sure it's playing all the way through, we're gonna go inside our simpler and into the envelopes and set a long release. You know what? Actually, I want to add more effects to this one. I just want to make it more lush with a hybrid reverb. Alright, hit this button to go onto my master track. Gonna finish it off with a bit of pseudo SP404 effect action with my 404 XL Ableton Live Rack. Hey yo guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Just a quick reminder that a great way to support the channel is to get one of my sample packs or Ableton Live packs from the link down in the video description. They all work on the Push 3 or on Ableton Live in your computer. And I also got some new packs coming up soon, and if you're not on my mailing list, you can get one of my free packs just to get signed up, and you will get notified when I release new stuff. Also check out my other sampling video on the Push 3 where I showcase the auto warping with a full song. Thank you so much for watching everyone, catch you later.